There is always a thin crack of light beneath the door when I get home from evenings like these. I remember the way it seemed to glow in the dark when I was younger, coming back from classes, from wandering the city, from painting all day and all night in places where no one would stumble across me. That glow was a little promise. Maybe they'd be asleep, and maybe the voices, the looks, the things unsaid wouldn't have a chance to crawl out. Not tonight. I never much believed in that promise, but still, I kept watching for that light. It's been so many years, but whenever I think back to that last family dinner before I left Rome, I see the shine of the light first. The memory comes with the odors of tomato, basil, the sticky sweetness of overripe pears, and the sharp, too clean scent of table linens just off the line. My mother cooking with her back to me, her apron tied at the same stubborn, slanting knot, my father in that battered brown cardigan he wore every night, and my brother leaning against the kitchen wall, arms crossed, a smirk already on his face. I took my seat last, always wary the outlander, the painter. My mother set down the bowl of pulpette and her hands trembled just a little. She caught herself pasted on a smile. My father cleared his throat and stabbed at his food. I waited, fork spinning in my fingers, each second loud as a clock tick. He started it. Marco, my brother 5 years older, existed in a state of gentle, amused impatience with my life. So Lucia, he said, drawing the name out like a challenge, decided whether to be a starving artist in Rome or try your luck haunting the piazzas of Florence instead. My mouth went dry. I always hated how my tongue felt thick when I most wanted to sound sharp. I'm not starving, I managed. He shrugged, cheek dimpling with his half-smile. Not yet, but it's coming. Fractions keep shrinking, you know, especially when you sell nothing. My father rumbled from the end of the table. Eat, Marco. His command had little force. He was just tired, but Marco pressed on, just saying, Papa. She wants us to believe the world is waiting for another Caravaggio, but it's not. Old news. My mother fussed with the breadbasket, chin down, but her eyes found me. Lucia, she said softly, maybe you could find something steady. Just for now, until the right time comes. The right time, as if that might slide onto the calendar one day, circled in red. My chest tightened. I have to paint, I said, hardly more than a whisper, but I forced my eyes up, meeting theirs one by one. I'm not giving it up. You don't have to like it, but you can stop mocking me. There was silence, broken only by the scrape of Marco's fork. That's not what we're saying, my father muttered. I almost laughed. Instead, I set down my fork. I'm not coming back for a while, I said. I got a space in Garbatella, cheap, cold, but mine. If you can't stand my dream, fine. I'll go do it alone. My legs shook so hard I barely made it away from the table. My mother called my name, but I pretended not to hear. When I shut the door, the crack of light vanished. That was how I left home, a 23-year-old with raw knuckles, a handful of pastels, and a cold room tucked above a crumbling alley. The thing about Garbatella is that you see the bones of Rome when you walk there. Not the postcard city, the Colosseum, the Spanish Steps, all that. Here the buildings lean, stubborn and grey, patched up so many times the layers show through. There's laundry everywhere, webs of colour blowing from balconies, children drawing hopscotch on chipped stones. When rain comes, it smells of pavement, of mould pressing against plaster. My apartment was 2 thin rooms, the walls as blotchy as bruised skin, windows that let in what little light the alley allowed. Still, the day I unpacked, it was a cathedral. I bought cans of paint from the market second-hand. I painted everything, door, window frames, a stripe up the kitchen wall to make it mine. Every morning I took my easel out and went looking. I painted orange crates, the bell tower, old ladies laughing in doorways, graffiti behind the tram stop. My fingers were numb from cold. Some days a few coins found their way into my jar from a passerby, but most days just looks, puzzled, pitying, or sometimes openly amused. There were weeks at a time when I wondered if my family was right. I worked nights sweeping the back rooms of a pizzeria, eating leftover crusts, saving every stray euro. I let myself believe I might, just might stop, pack the paints away, try working in a shop, or even take my mother's advice and try teaching again. But every time I tried to stop, I'd see a flash, a stain of color against a wall at dusk, and I would be out again the next morning, brush in hand. That first year I didn't call home, not at Christmas, not in spring. My mother wrote letters. I kept them in a box, unopened at first. Later I'd read them in bursts, sobbing sometimes at the sweetness inside, her recipes, clippings about artists she never would have known, notes asking if I was warm, if I was safe, if I'd met anyone kind. My father never wrote. The only person who found me sometimes was Marco. He'd come past on his Vespa when his shift ended. He never told anyone he visited, I'm sure. He'd hand me cigarettes, sit swinging his legs over the low wall I painted most weekends, and make fun of my latest work. But once, leaving, he touched my shoulder and said, "You keep painting like this, maybe someone will notice." That was more kindness than I'd heard in a year. I entered contests, was rejected again and again. I taught art to children in a damp church basement. I painted the walls too, a fish, a sun, a bear, a green-eyed cat. I took commissions when I could get them, a mural in a bakery, a portrait of an ancient dog, a bougainvillea on a broken fence. When the real break came, it was little more than a message scrawled between two bags of groceries. "Call this number, you're wanted." I called. It was a curator named Francesca, breathless, blunt, impatient. She'd seen my mural on Via Luigi Orlando, the one with girls dancing under fig trees, the faces of my sisters, girls who used to play next door at home. "I want 3 paintings," she said. "Large ones, color, you have 2 weeks, can you do it?" I did not sleep for 13 days straight. I painted through fevers, through cracked fingers, through the cough that settled in my chest and would not leave. My neighbors brought me bread, cheese, even coffee. I swore at my own clumsy hands and covered ruined canvases with new ones. On the 14th day, I arrived at a gallery with my hands shaking and my mind blank. Francesca eyed the paintings, and for a moment there was silence so deep I thought my heart would pound out of my chest. "They aren't safe," she said. I opened my mouth to argue, but she raised her hand. "No, listen, that's good. I don't want safe, I wanted Rome, but you gave me something else. This is Garbatella, this is women in a city they built themselves. I'll show these at the spring exhibition, people won't like them." "That's all right, let them fight." She grinned, and I felt the whole world tilt. She paid me half that day. I paid my rent a month in advance, bought new brushes, sent a little home with no return address. After the show, a French writer wrote about me. Then a German collector bought 2 smaller works, enough to cover 4 whole months of life and a new coat. People finally saw me at my easel and stopped to talk. Children on their way to school asked if they could help paint the walls. I said yes. We made a wobbly mural with their dreams and mine swallowing up a whole block. 3 years scraped by, shows, sales. A magazine article with my face and my full name. The Rome my parents lived in and the Rome I made for myself was still worlds apart. The invitation to the Capitoline Museum came pink as a dawn sky. Francesca calling, breathless again. "You'll be included in the New Visions of Rome show, opening night, important people. Come dressed up please, Lucia, this isn't Garbatella." The first thing I did was call my mother, her voice trembled. She misheard half of what I said. "You're showing at the Capitoline, Lucia, are you sure they want you?" I bit my lip to keep from laughing. "Mama, yes, it's for real." My father answered when I called again. He cleared his throat, and when he spoke, it was low, wary, searching for something to hold. "It's a good thing your mother is proud." "Will you come?" I asked. He grunted, a sound halfway to no and halfway to yes. On the day of the opening, I found myself rehearing every old fear as I stood before the old brown door of our flat. The air was sharp with late February, sun-brittle and cold. My mother opened the door before I could knock. She must have been waiting. She looked up at me, then reached wordless to smooth my hair with her practiced hands. "Come," she murmured. Marco lounged in the kitchen, older now, a little heavier, but his eyes were quick as ever. He gave me his old smirk, but there was something else behind it. As we set out for the museum, I wondered if they'd all vanish at the last minute, laughing, whispering about the foolishness of it all. But they stayed close. My mother's arm found mine on the icy stone steps. My father buttoned his coat and hovered behind, a silent, steady presence. At the museum, the city unfolded beneath a sky of indigo and gold. Ancient walls glowed, traffic streamed by, and the Capitoline loomed in marble and shadow. Inside, I nearly turned back. The air pressed around me, voices, laughter, the slow hush of expensive shoes on stone. But Francesca was waiting, blazing in a dove-grey coat. She took my hand, squeezed hard. "They're here," she whispered. "You're ready." When we entered the exhibition room, I saw it. One whole wall, 3 meters high, nearly as wide as a bus, for my painting. The one I'd finished after 3 months of fevered work. "Women with Wings," I'd called it, a vision of the girls of Garbatella running, arms spread, laughing, sidewalks beneath them transformed into rivers, the colors wild and deep. I'd painted my mother's face among them, and for the first time my own. It was loud, uneven, full of hope and sorrow. There were people everywhere, critics, artists, tourists, some just hungry for free wine. I heard phrases cut from every side. Raw, a little rough but honest, reminds me of the early futurists. Is it too political? Who is she? Faces leaned in, some indifferent, some so intent it felt like prayer. I found my family at the edge of the crowd. My mother's eyes filled, her knuckles white as she gripped her purse. My brother tried to hide a grin, but I caught him. My father's jaw set hard, but he stood beside them, not hanging back. This was the moment, the cynics, my family, Rome itself. Francesca stepped up, a coupe of champagne swinging from her fingers. She turned microphone in hand, beaming at them at the crowd. We celebrate new visions for an ancient city, she said. Tonight we see Rome through Lucia Cesari's eyes, a living city full of fire and gentle hands. Mamma Cesari, she held the mic toward my mother, eyes twinkling. My mother looked like she might bolt, but then she stepped forward, her voice wavering but clear. She always saw things the rest of us couldn't. The crowd clapped, my father looked away, blinking fast. Then Marco, always the mischief maker, shouldered in and tossed an arm around me, kissing my hair. "Who's ridiculous now?" he said, voice loud enough for the nearest skeptics to hear. "My sister, the painter." My legs nearly buckled. The world shimmered in soft focus, the painting, the crowd, the old hard faces of my family, all of it ringing in my ears. For the first time since that night at the dinner table, I felt only tenderness toward them. My father, who never understood but whose pride burned blue and quiet like the flame under my mother's old stovetop. My mother, fierce in her softness, always worrying, always watching. Marco, foolish, loyal, exasperating. They were here and I was theirs. For hours people drifted by, a teacher from my old school, mouth agape, grabbing my hand. "You painted this, Lucia, una meraviglia, truly." A group of young girls in their uniforms stopped and pointed, whispering. They saw themselves in the girls I had painted and their faces lit up. For once, the laughter was celebration, not mockery. That night, long after the crowds ebbed and the city folded into starless dark, I walked with my family back through the heart of Rome. Through the warren of streets Marco mocked as too much like the old days. The alleys gleamed with puddles. My father's coat brushed my hand. "You did this," he said softly. "You never believed," I replied, not in anger but with something like wonder. He nodded, eyes on the stones at his feet. "Sometimes I was wrong. My mother took my face in her hands. We only wanted you safe. But I'm glad you didn't listen." The city felt different, closer, softer, spun of old wounds now mending. After they left, I returned to Garbatella. The mural I painted with the children stood gleaming in the first light, every color bolder than I remembered. Girls and boys, cats, wild birds, fig trees curling against impossible blue skies. I unlocked my studio, stepping in to find the morning over the rooftops, spilling gold down the paint-splattered walls. I took up my brush and started a new painting, my hands sure. The city outside woke and began, and I worked, knowing now that in this single, rough, impossible life, I was never alone.